simple things, the smile on your face, the joy it brings, the feeling inside takes my breath away. What you give brightens up my day. There's nothing better than love. Feel your warm embrace, your hug, your touch. Never wanna imagine life without you. There's nothing better than love. Something so magical feels unreal. A fantasy place where children live. I feel like a princess in a fairy tale. You came along and you changed my world. There's nothing better than love. Feel your warm embrace, your hug, your touch. Never wanna imagine life without you. There's nothing better than love. All the beauty I see means more to me. Having you.
Now watch this. Listen, here's why they're wrong. Here's why they're wrong. They won't even apologize to the best citizens that they've ever had. Now listen. It wasn't black Africans from Nigeria that flew over Pearl Harbor on December the 7th and declared war on the United States of America. Approximately 3,000 plus Americans were killed by the Japanese on the day of Pearl Harbor when Japan declared war on the United States of America. And then after that, they gave them $20,000 apiece and apology for declaring war on them. And black people have been the most loyal people to the United States. They have never, ever declared war on the United States. Never. Listen. We have been the most loyal people to this nation than any of the immigrants that ever came here. We have fought in every one of America's war and then got treated like dogs after it. And then the nation has the gall to decide whether or not we should apologize to them. Maybe we ought to declare war on them, and then maybe that'll get them to apologize. I mean, right is right, doggone it. Right is right. That's just downright criminal. That's just downright criminal. We have fought in every single war. We have been butchered and destroyed and shot up and come back to this country and couldn't even get a job. Just because we were black. And you say you're going to decide whether you apologize? In God we trust. What God?
You know, it's very interesting when we talk about a black Holocaust and we try to get black people to remember what has happened to us. That's called hatred. When Jewish persons keep talking about what Hitler did to them, that's called remembering so it will never happen again. Many of our scholars estimate that in the Middle Passage from Africa to America, we lost in the neighborhood of 100 million black lives. The soil of America is soaked with the blood of our fathers. So when we start talking about what is owed to us, we have to consider the 100 million lives that were lost in the Middle Passage. We have to consider 300 years of chattel slavery. We have to consider the damage that was done to our psyche, to our mind, by taking away from us our names, our language, our culture, our religion, our God.
sing earth, heaven, ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies resound the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. March on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod to the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn has died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place from which our fathers died. We have come over a way that when tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter, out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of my star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk of the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our God, true to our native land, true to our native land.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Sunday School. I am your teacher for this morning, Alonzo Fleming, and I want to thank everybody for joining me for Sunday School this morning. We have a lesson this morning, and I wanted to warm you up with a few speakers as well as the national anthem this morning because of the time we are in. And once you understand the time that we are in, brothers and sisters, you will understand what must be done. It is time for a new thought, a new way, a new path, a realization of the time and what must be done. So you heard from Dr. Frederick K. Price in a segment from his series he did some years ago, Race, Religion, and Racism. And then you heard from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan recounting the suffering, the loss, the amount of lives that were lost in the Middle Passage coming from Africa to these shores of America. And then finally, you heard the national anthem. We are still doing our series on, well, let me stop here. Remember Wednesday, I got my announcements here. Let me just get through it. Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time, we are doing a series on the internal struggles of Job, the internal struggles of Job. And this is a necessary part of the series of Let My People Go. It is a Bible study portion of it so that you will understand, brothers and sisters, that it's time to, how they say in the Bible, gird up the loins of your mind. In other words, let go of all of the useless things that you might be engaged in at this time because you realize the time and what must be done. And so this lesson, the internal struggles of Job, is designed to help us to do just that, to get a disciplined mind, to let go of useless antics, attitudes, and conduct, and prepare ourselves for where we are going. And I know that it's a hard thing for some of us to contemplate that what we are living under is over, but it doesn't take much than a cursory examination for you to see that America as you know it is over. So remember to Wednesday at 7 p.m. And then if you're inclined to support us, I got the Cash App going across the bottom. We're doing some things. We're not just getting on here talking. I just haven't announced some of the things that we're doing, that we're preparing in the vein of the ministry that has been given to me. So if you feel inclined to support us, do so with the Cash App, and we'll appreciate that. Our subject here this morning, let me get my towel just in case I start sweating. Our subject here this morning is a continuation of Let My People Go. We were talking about this, using the story of Moses and the children of Israel in Egypt, finally coming out after 450 something years of slavery, servitude, integration, Jim Crow, etc., etc., etc. This particular segment that we're doing is Let My People Go, preachers, politicians, and black women for such a time as this. Preachers, politicians, and black women for such a time as this. And I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. I want to start off this lesson, brothers and sisters, with a question for you. Well, actually, it's three questions. to kind of lay a foundation of what we're going to be talking about, and something that will dig deep into your soul to help you to deal with the reasoning that I'm engaging in here. Question number one: if guilt is hell, what is its opposite? If guilt is hell, what is its opposite? I want you to think about it. Question number two: if slavery is blindness, what is its opposite? If slavery is blindness, what is its opposite? And finally, if sin is death, what is its opposite? If sin is death, what is its opposite? So you have guilt is hell, slavery is blindness, sin is death, and what are the opposites of these three things? I want you to have that in the back of your mind as we go through this lesson this morning. Let my people go, as I said, we're using the story of Moses in the book of Exodus to help illustrate what the principles that are underlying a condition where people find themselves in this situation. And many of us have read this story. I mean, most of us have grown up in the church. And it doesn't take a total rehash of the story in order to talk about it to you. But in this story, as a quick review, I'm claiming that you, black man and woman, are the children of Israel for this day and time. See, because if the story cannot be used when a people are in a situation, then what's the point? What's the point of all the fairy tales and stories and allegories and examples if they are useless and good for nothing more than to talk about what God did way back when? But you are in a situation that he can't do that. See, so I'm using this story and I'm claiming to you that this story is an allegory of what the principles are working underneath for a people who find themselves in this situation. You can use this story, and you are the true children of Israel for this day. And I said to you that the children of Israel is not a static thing. It's not a thing to where you are designated as the children of Israel for eternity. No, it is a story containing principles for anybody in this situation. And so you have been in this situation, so you are the children of Israel. And you can use the principles of this story in order to bring about freedom, justice, and equality for yourselves and your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren to 1,000 generations. I said to you that this story did not happen over a period of days and months. You know, you read the story in the Bible, and you would think that this has happened over a couple of days. It just seemed like a couple of days. But with careful reading, you will see that this story in the Bible happened over generations. It happened over a decade, a protracted period of time. And as also, the story was a prophecy of a future people under the government of a future world. It was not a situation that we have been taught that happened way back when. It never happened way back when. there was a discussion between some time ago back in the 70s between the president of Israel and the president of Egypt. Anwar Sadat was the president of Egypt, and Menachem Begin was the president of Israel. And they're talking and they're trying to get this peace treaty going between the Arabs and the Israelis. And Menachem Begin made a statement to Anwar Sadat saying something along the lines of, yeah, we have a lot in common, seeing that our people have a common history when we were enslaved in Egypt. And Anwar Sadat said, there is no history, no Egyptian history of anybody being slaves in Egypt 400 years and crossing the Red Sea and all this story, as the story puts it. There is no story. Now, Egypt is not just a Johnny-come-lately. Egypt kept good records of its history. And surely, if this situation happened way back when under the Pharaoh, then surely there would be some history in Egypt, since Egypt was the greatest power, some history in the nations surrounding Egypt, because Egypt had garrisons on both sides of the Red Sea. It was the greatest power. So if nobody is talking about this except in the Bible, then it's suspect of whether or not this was a historical event or a situation that's happening now. Maybe it was a prophecy. And I say it was the latter, a prophecy, an event yet to happen. So the story also is not a religious story, though it includes religion. This story reveals the principles that govern the end of an empire and the evolution of humanity and the people or group who will guide that evolutionary step. I want you to stay with me here. See, because many of us have not been taught this. We've been taught fairy tales and hocus pocus. We've been taught fantasies. And we have not been taught historical facts. And it's been set up under a religious context, giving it a mysticism, giving fantasies and fairy tales a mysticism that has no basis in fact or truth. So this is the story of the end and the collapse of an empire that has grown to the point of arrogance. And so the gods come and use this situation and take the smallest and the weakest of the people within that strong, boastful empire and use that situation to show that no man gets to rule forever. And especially one that is arrogant in his or her ways. And so the number one principle governing the collapse of a nation is the principle of chaos. The principle of chaos is the guiding principle that reduces a great nation down to nothing. It uses confusion and corruption on every institution. And as Ray Dalio said in his book, Principles for Dealing with a Changing World Order, because that's what we're in the midst of, a changing world order, it's the internal disorder. Now remember, we're doing the program on the internal struggles of Job. So this internal order or disorder is the principle of chaos that's guiding the collapse of a country. And there are two places in a country that you must understand what's happening because they are the most dangerous. It is the rise of a great nation, or the birth, and the collapse of a great nation, or the death. And so under the collapse as well as the rise are the institutions of government, social contracts, education, religion, and family. And you will see under those institutions, these are the institutions that govern nations and govern the relationship between individuals and citizens within that nation. Brothers and sisters, ain't no hocus pocus coming down here and doing it for us. It's going to take institutions. And these institutions under a collapsing great power are the institutions of government, social contract, education, finance, religion, and family. And you will see corruption and graft and lying and deceit in each one of those institutions as a norm during the collapse. You will see corruption in terms of loss of courtesies to one another and customs to each other. You will see mean-spiritedness between the citizens on a grand scale. And customs are no longer observed. There's no basis for relationship among the citizens. See, you don't know that this is the gods working in this. You think it's just happening. You will see name calling among the citizens, from the government to religion to the family. You will see disrespect and slander and misinformation and deceit among the people. These are the things that you will begin to behold at the end as the collapse is happening. You will see a significant number of the population no longer attached to science and gender identification or relationship as countrymen. You will notice a confusion about even the gender, whether or not you are born a male or born a female. We don't know what the hell you're born nowadays. You want to date somebody, you got to ask her, was she born a woman? Was you born a man? You will see a confusion around this. You will see money devaluation and a loss of productivity among the citizens of the country. These are the things you will see as a nation is in decline. And this is a dangerous situation. This is dangerous because the ones who were in power, they don't want to give up power. They don't know that they're fighting against God. They don't know that their violence is against what must be. And so you see a war between the gods, and the gods being the thinking. And so you have 99% of the evangelical Christians wanting Trump, and 99% of the black Christians wanting Biden. And you see 57, 75 million white folk, more than anybody, any time in history, voted for Trump. But he still didn't win. It was the first time in American history that white folk as a group did not select the president. 75 million voted for him. And the other piece, the other half, voted for Biden. But they would have lost if it was not for the Hispanics, the blacks, the Asians, the Arabs, and everybody else. It was the first time that white folks didn't choose a president. And you don't know that, and you don't know that they know it, and that they know that, wait a minute, something ain't right here. What ain't right is that you have a nation in decline. That's what's not right. And so some of the things you will see this going on. And then you have an external disorder happening. You will see the nations rising up against that nation. Jesus said this, that you would see that. But he was talking about the nations of humanity rising up against a brutal world power. And so now you see the BRICS nations formulating, and they're comprising about 40% of the global productivity. They're comprising a significant number of the global population. Africa is telling America and Europe, get the hell out. She's proud now, strong enough now, or getting to that position to where she said, no, y'all been colonizing, exploiting, and killing all these centuries. No, don't come calling us over here now, Joe. You will see situations where the other countries are rising up and saying no more. So the Chinese send balloons over your country, traversing your nation, spy balloons. You see the Chinese and the Russians off the coast of Alaska with ships and armadas challenging the power of the United States, and they're downplaying it. And you see 40% of the population of the planet trying to join the BRICS nations and trying to replace the dollar with a new global currency. This is what you will see. And so you've been inoculated, black man and woman. You've been inoculated by them telling you this is Satan's world rising. Satan's world is coming up and trying to take over God's world. Because God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And so this is God's world, and that's Satan's world trying to come up against God's world. But if you take that whole thing, that inoculation that you've been given, and so you start rejecting the idea that another power, another group of power of people coming to have a releasing effect on your experience, you will fight against your own best interests. And so this is what the Pharaoh knew in the story of Moses. He wasn't just saying when he said, let us deal wisely with them, lest when another nation rise up against us, they will fight with them. He wasn't just saying that off the cuff. He knew what he had been doing to everybody. And he knew that his power couldn't stand for too much longer. And so at the end of a world, every institution that holds society together breaks down. The first institution that breaks down is the family. And this situation breaks down not only among the leaders of the nation, but it breaks down all the way down from the greatest to the least. The family is broken down and redefined as something to hide the fact. It's redefined as something else to hide the fact that it has broken down. That the family is not a natural order, that it is something else, that we decided what the family is going to be. And so, as I said, the God of this world has inoculated you, brother, with religion, with social order, with an economic system. And the God of this world has blinded our minds to make us believe that nothing is better than this. That anything more evolved than this must be of Satan. And tells you that a new world order is evil. And so, as I said, we're going to deal with 3 institutions, but really 2 of them with respect to us as we are in this situation. We're dealing with preachers or the institution of religion under slavery, politicians or the institution of government under slavery, and black women and the family, which is the anchor of the family. Now remember, the Pharaoh said, let us deal wisely with them, lest they rise up with a nation that comes against us and fight against us. This is his fear. Even though you have the most loyal of citizens, this is his everlasting fear. You know, guilt has a way of making you scared that somebody is going to do to you what you did to them. But when he said, let us deal wisely with them, brothers, he didn't tell the slaves that. Sister, he didn't tell the slaves that. He didn't tell the slaves, let us deal wisely with them. He was talking to his people when he said, let us deal wisely with them. Go read it in the 1st chapter of Exodus. He was talking to his people. The slaves didn't know what the plan was, and the slaves couldn't deal with it from the standpoint of the plan because it was done in such a subtle way that it didn't look like somebody was coming at them overtly. It looked like the things in the depression and the drugs and the alcohol and all the broken families just seemed par for the course. It didn't seem to them like there was a plan. Like in the Declaration of Independence, it says, but when a long train of abuses, see, you had to have a long train of abuses because it's so subtle that you don't know. But when you see this long train and it just keep going by and you keep seeing the same thing on each car, you keep seeing the same thing on each car of the train, abuses on this car, abuses on that car, and the train is going by, then you can conclude reasonably that there is a plan to reduce you to absolute despotism. But if you're filled with superstition and fantasies and fairy tales, you won't make the logical conclusion that there must be a plan. So let us deal wisely with them. So now, if you turn to the book of Exodus, we're going to compress the preachers and politicians together. And we're justified in doing this because you don't know, or very few politicians, black politicians, that ain't preachers. You don't know that it's hard for black people to find a politician that is not a preacher, a leader that is not a preacher. Even here, I'm sounding like a preacher. So it's hard for us to find that. So I'm justified in collapsing the designation of preacher and politician together. Now turn to Exodus chapter 5. I want to show you something. Exodus chapter 5. And I want to read you something so you can know what was happening. And I want to go down to verse 14. I want you to see what was happening. Now remember, they were in Egypt 400 years and some change. 450 years in this particular story. During that 450 years, the economy was not the same. See, they were there being used for economic reason and a social reason. So at some period in that 400 years, they were integrated into Egypt. Some period of that 400 years was a period of killing and massacring and segregation. It was not a static situation. It was very dynamic, and it changed with the administration or the Pharaoh. But there was a consistent thing. Remember, they're dealing wisely with you. Exodus chapter 5, starting at verse 14. Well, let me start at verse 13. And the taskmasters hasted them, saying, fulfill your works, your daily task, as when there was straw. They had taken the straw away from them and told them to keep working. The officers of the children of Israel, which Pharaoh's taskmasters set over them, were beaten and demanded, why have you not fulfilled your task in making bricks both yesterday and today as before? Then the officers of the children of Israel came and cried unto Pharaoh, saying, why are you dealing with us like that? There is no straw given unto thy servants. And they say to us, make brick, and behold, thy servants are beaten, but the fault is in your own hand. But he said, you are idle. You are idle. That's why you say, let us go and be free, because you are idle. And so now there's a lot to unpack in here, brothers and sisters. The first thing I want you to understand is who your leaders are. See, to cultivate a great nation, you have to have great leadership over generations. Your leadership can't be a perpetual leadership that goes on forever. There are different leaders develop as you go. So each leader develops another group of leaders. And when you don't do that, then you will have a consistent rising and falling, and you never get to your goal because you don't have a vision that goes across generations. So that's part of the wisdom that the Pharaoh used to always make a leader perpetual until he dies. He can't develop new leadership. So to cultivate a great nation, leadership must be developed over several generations. I want you to notice American leadership today as we speak. They are old. You're looking at the presidential race, and the youngest one on one side, Vivek Ramaswamy, on the Republican side, is around 30-something years old, but a charlatan, a liar, a double dealer. So that's the only one. The rest of them are old and worn, including the top dog, Donald Trump. On the Biden side, you have Joe Biden in his 80s, and there's nobody coming up behind them. There's nobody. If he dies in office, then Kamala Harris will be president, and then you really got some problems on your hand, because they ain't going to let another Negro rule them. You see the backlash from Barack Obama, don't you? They're not going to let another one of them rule them. So great leadership over many generations have to be developed in order to make a great nation. But you have in America old, outdated, worn out, corrupt, rotten leadership, and they're not putting anything but corrupt, rotten, and worn out minds coming behind them. And so they can't stand, brother. They can't stand, because a house divided against itself cannot stand. It's not that it won't, it cannot. It's impossible for it to stand. So going back here to the story here that we were reading, you will notice that the Pharaoh was over the leaders in or of the children of Israel. Look at here again. the taskmasters, which were the people of Pharaoh that was put over the administration of the slaves. They were called taskmasters. The taskmasters, who were the Egyptians, then selected officers who were of the children of Israel. They were the civil rights leaders. They were the ones who was administering the will of the Pharaoh. But the people, the Hebrew slaves, they were so angry that if they knew that these leaders were of Pharaoh, see, because they pretended to be of the people, if they knew that the leadership was of Pharaoh, they'd kill him. So dealing wisely was set in a way to where the taskmasters chose the officers who were Hebrews and taught them how to deal with the children of Israel. In this particular case, the children of Israel was tired of the civil rights. The children of Israel was tired of trying to please Pharaoh and find a place in Egypt. The children of Israel was tired of working hard and always getting less. The children of Israel, who started to think of themselves as Egyptians, but always knew that they were Hebrews, that they could never fit in that society, kept trying nevertheless to fit. But the Pharaoh had taught, or his taskmasters had taught the officers of the children of Israel how to deal with the children of Israel. But the children of Israel didn't know that their own brother was double dealing, because they was talking a good game all the time. And so in this situation, you see that the people no longer listened to the civil rights leader. The people no longer wanted to hear that. The people wanted to hear freedom, justice, equality. They wanted to hear life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They wasn't caring no more about no civil rights or fitting in a corrupt and burning house. And so the Pharaoh brought them in, unbeknownst to the children of Israel, and beat them and said, "What's up? Why ain't my Negroes working no more?" And he said, "Well, it's not our fault. You took the straw from us. You understand? And we can't do it." And the Pharaoh said, "Y'all listening to Farrakhan. Y'all listening to Frederick Price. Y'all listening to all these leaders that's talking about freedom from us. And that's why you can't do your work. You're too idle. And that's the reason that you're talking about being free from us. That's the reason. So you're going to get out here and you're going to tell these Negroes to get back to work and stop paying attention to all these brothers telling you about the God of your fathers have come to rescue you from me." So I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, that if we get through this, it's not going to be through magic. It's not going to be through a superstitious rapture that the preachers are telling you about. Oh, it's going to be a rapture, but it's not no superstitious hocus pocus thing. It's going to be a development of institutions. It's going to be through your coming from within yourself and of yourself, which God has placed in you. You're going to have to get some gonads and start building for yourself. So then, now let's talk about that. The preachers and the politicians belong to Pharaoh. They don't belong to you. And that's why, after all these years, You are still, as Carter G. Woodson said in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, you are still, though you have carved the door into the back so you can go into the back and get some semblance of right, you are still just as colonized in the end as you were in the beginning. You're colonized through religion. You're colonized through economics. You're colonized through the social order. You're colonized through the politics. You're colonized through the educational system. None of it works for you. And the proof is in the fact that we're better educated, but making less. The proof is in the fact that we are senators and congressmen and mayors and been the president and the vice president. And we're still behind the 8 ball. The proof is in the fact that we got churches on every corner and depressed and drug infested and alcoholism is going on rampant. And lying and adultery and all the things that we look down on that destroys a society is rampant among us in the midst of a church on every corner, which is supposed to be the moral compass of the community. So I want to deal with the family. I want to deal with the black woman. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad of the Muslims, as well as the Honorable Marcus Garvey, who was a Christian, we rejected them both. Marcus Garvey was a Christian, and we rejected him. See, we don't have no excuse. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a Muslim, and we rejected him. And so as Jesus said to them preachers, he said, wisdom is justified by what she produced. So we don't have an excuse. Well, he's a Muslim, and I ain't no Muslim, I'm a Christian. Well, we rejected Marcus Garvey. He's a Christian. So I want to talk about the black woman here. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the woman comprises 75% of his work. The reason that the woman is so important, and I'm saying woman as opposed to female, because God created you female, but we use woman. So I'm just going for convenience, use woman. The reason that the woman is so important to the development of a nation is because of what she is equipped with. The woman lives longer than the male. The woman is stronger physically than the male in terms of her willingness to go the distance. The woman brings forth the nation out of her womb. And the woman is the first view of God that anybody has. She's the first view. She's the one who feeds the child like God. She looks into the eyes of her, the mother like God, like she's looking into the eyes of God. She speaks to the mother first. And this is the reason that the woman is so important in the family equation. She is the anchor of the family with respect to its longevity. The male, and I'm not going to deal with us brothers, is the protector of the institution of family. But it is the woman that is the one that perpetuates it with respect to its growth and its enlightenment. It is the woman. Now, I did some research in college, and I want to share with you some of my findings. I was always off the beaten path. It didn't matter what situation I was in. I have never sang with the choir. My father even said that. He said, boy, you just never gonna sing with the choir, are you? Because I always saw things differently than the group. And it wasn't because I just needed to do that. I just seemed to see things differently. But I did some research in college on the black family, and I just stumbled upon this. It wasn't something I thought about. I just happened to notice it during some research on something else. And do you know that there were roughly three forms of the black family throughout history in America? The first form of the black family was a black woman in a house with children from multiple men. And this was due to the forced breeding. She was breeders. And so the Pharaoh would find, or a Freudian slip there. The slave master would find a big buck because he needed somebody that was big and strong but had a pea brain. And he would mate him with the woman who was strong. And so the family was the woman, small children with different fathers. This was during slavery. When our fathers were freed from slavery, one of the first things they did, and this is the second phase, was try to put their families back together, which had been sold off because they were breeding them like horses and selling them. So the family would the men would try to put families back together, and you saw a configuration of the family with a mother, a father, and children from different mothers or fathers, different parents. They would have different parents. For example, a woman would have a child, but she was bred with another man, and the man would have a child, but he was bred with another woman, and they was putting these blended families together. And this was the first look before we started building towns of our own. We were segregated, and before long, the family started to evolve into mother, father, children from the same parents. See, at first it was blended, and then it turned into mother, father, children, and we were strong. And that's how you had Black Wall Street, and that's how we were able to build 60 or 70 towns after, because we were segregated, but we were focused in, and we were evolving as a people. And we started with the family, and it was the family black man that was able to raise us up from the ground of slavery and make us prosperous in the midst of a segregated society and a hateful society. And then there was the third phase. So we got the family now, mother, father, children, with the same mother and father. And you had extended families and everything. And then the third phase of this process, when the slave masters saw that we were becoming strong with our families and we were segregated, so he had to do something about that. So we began to integrate. And ironically, the state of our integrated family looks suspiciously like the state of our slave family. Mama with children from different daddies, and daddies running around making children everywhere. The state of our family under integration looks suspiciously like the family under slavery. Let us deal wisely with them. And so the black woman has been bamboozled. You see, because you got with a fight that wasn't yours and left the fight that was. What was the fight? The fight was feminism. Turn your books to Exodus chapter 1 and verse 15 and 16. Well, was that verse 15 and 16? No. I want to go to the scripture where it says, let us kill the boys. He said, the Pharaoh said to the midwives of the Hebrews, when you are having children, I want you to kill the boys and save the girls alive. You find this same concept going on with the birth of Jesus in the New Testament. Kill the boys and save the girls alive. Now, he wasn't talking to the Egyptians. He was talking to the Hebrew midwives. Now, the Bible said that many of them didn't do that, but many of them did. Kill the boys and save the girls alive. Many of them did that. He wasn't talking to the Egyptian women. He was talking to the Hebrews to kill their own children. And so some of them, after he figured out that enough of them didn't do it, he started killing the boys wholesale. And that's when you start seeing, that's when the Moses story started coming up. And that's when Moses' mother put him in the river and floated him down the river, because the Egyptians saw that, no, they're still growing too fast. You're not killing them fast enough, black woman. They're still growing, and they're getting smarter and stronger and more courageous, and don't give a damn about your job. Don't care about your political position. Don't care, because we know the God is coming against it. So we don't care. So what they had to do to you who did obey, who didn't obey, the black woman who didn't obey and said, no, I'm not killing my man. Pharaoh, dealing with you wisely, what he did, he said, okay, we need another trick. So he got his woman to get you in a fight against him for equal rights and into his world. And so you got with the feminist movement and claiming I'm oppressing you like the white man was oppressing his woman. You see, she built this country with him. She was by his side when he built it. No matter what he was doing, you could say, oh, they did this and did that. But she was by his side when he built this country. But he did not include her as an equal with him. He kept her off out of the center of attention. And she found herself being exploited by him. So she, knowing the power of you, got you to get in her fight against her man. And you started accusing your man of the same thing that he was doing to his woman. We ain't had no power to do nothing wrong to you. We haven't had any institutions to do anything wrong to you. We just as foolish and silly. We've been miseducated just like you have. We don't know our way just like you don't know your way. And so the ones who wouldn't obey him, he tricked them in another way. And he got the feminist movement and got you in it, and now you're doing all the fighting for feminism, and she done gone on and got with her man, and they trying to save their world. While you fighting against me, and I'm fighting against you over something that's not even there. And so you got the fellas who are saying they tired. They saying that the black woman is no longer suitable. They call themselves the passport bros, and we see these wars going on between us. Black men are saying, we don't want you no more. Black women are saying, that's all right, I can take care of myself. So we now got a war, another war that's not even ours. And the Pharaoh, as Minister Farrakhan says, has turned us into him. And so you find yourself, woman, the most educated, but husbandless. You find yourself, woman, the most influential, but powerless. You find yourself, woman, the most beautiful, but disrespected. And so you flexing against the very ones who God shut this system down for and taught us while it was shut down that it's now time to stand up and be free. And so he's given us the way. He's given us the know-how. He's set your man up to lead the way. But you're not going to be set in no corner. You see, you're not going to be set in a corner. You're not in a corner. If you turn to the book of Esther, you will discover what the deal is. There's a situation where the Pharaoh knew that his days were numbered. And so he started killing the people of God. And there were women in place in the government, in the society, in all aspects of living, and they were being quiet about it. They were seeing it happen and making a little bit of noise, but not enough to really make a difference. And so one brother said to his niece, he said, yes, you've been put in this place, but you've been put in this place and think that you're going to escape what is happening to your sons, to your uncles, to your husbands, to your fathers. You think because of your place in Pharaoh's house that you're going to escape, but you've been put there for a reason. Think not that you will escape the hand of Pharaoh when he's done with your man, with your son, with your uncle, with your father, with your brother. Think not that you will escape, because you've been put in this place for such a time as this. You just didn't know that you were put there. You thought you was independent. You thought that you did it all on your own, but you didn't know the prayers of your mother as in your fathers is the one that guided your life to get you where you are. And they didn't do it so you could stand up and poke your chest out and call yourself an independent, strong black woman. You were put in place for such a time as this. That assumes that somebody knows the time. Somebody knows what time it is. Somebody knows the place we are at. But somebody ain't telling you the truth. The truth is, black woman, that God has put you in a place. You in a place to become the mother of civilization, the first of the living. But you got to let go of Pharaoh's world. You got to let go of his thinking. You got to let go of his culture. You got to let go of a religion that doesn't do nothing but put you to sleep and cause you to have children that are asleep. And this is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that you were 75% of his work. So now I'm looking around, and I'm going to conclude with this. I'm looking around, and I'm seeing situations. I'm saying, well, wait a minute, God, where is our salvation. I mean, you saying institutions. Where are the institutions? In the story of Moses, when God told Moses who he was, Moses said, they're not going to believe me. They're going to say, who are you? See, that presumes that they didn't know who God was, but they had gods. They had the gods of the Egyptians. But Moses came to represent the energy of their fathers, which is called gods. The God of their fathers, the energy under which you were created. So they had gods, but it was the gods given to them, sister, by the Egyptians. And the Egyptians are not going to give you anything that's going to free you from them. They're not going to give you anything that's going to free your sons from them. They're not going to make you truly independent. So you got to challenge the God that you have been given. And if he is real, then he can put up. But if he threatens you because you want to prove all things and hold fast to that which is good, then you know that is not the power that's working with you. If he gets angry, and if his representatives get angry because you challenge him, and like Elijah said in that great challenge, when he said, okay, since we are caught between two opinions, let's do this. Let's put up two sacrifices. And you call on your God, preacher, and I'll call on mine. And the one who answers by fire, that's the one we going with. At first, the people were scared. They didn't want to do that. They didn't want to do that. They were scared. But then finally, the threshold of pain had been reached, and so they said, we got to do something. So they did the sacrifice. So if somebody proposes that you prove all things, as the Bible says, I mean, try it. See if it's for real. Don't just presume it and give it the benefit of the doubt. Try it. Put some force to it. See if it can withstand force coming against it. And if it stands as good, hold on to it. But if it collapses under the weight of force, throw it down. And so this is the challenge that I'm giving to the black woman today. Prove all things. Hold fast to that which is good. If your God that you've been given by the Pharaoh can prove and stand up, then you hold on to him. But if he falls and collapses under the weight of truth, let him go and go with the truth. So we got two situations today, two institutions. The institution, the Nation of Islam. They're making men, they're making women, wholesome leadership. I'm watching it happen. And then we got the Hebrew Israelites. They're making women, they're making men. They're making wholesome people. And you're watching these situations grow. And so these institutions, and I'm sure there are others, are going to merge together. But Pharaoh's God is not coming with us.